Welcome, AFTERBUZZers. You are watching the Roots After Show, where tonight we talk about slavery, the fight for freedom, and more.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Wow, welcome, AFTERBUZZers. You are watching the Roots After Show, episodes 3 and 4. Tonight we recap it all. What a great miniseries it was to really be a part of and to watch. How do you guys feel? I mean, I'm still kind of, we just watched the show. I'm still kind of like,
Lord. Look at my face.
I mean, thank God that Beyonce's song just started playing. It's helping me kind of come down from the emotion.
Pick back up.
That's what Lemonade was meant to do. You
right?
started walking with their chest up a little bit after that came out. Like, okay.
Man, I'm still a little floored. Well, my name is Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shaka Strong.
Hi, I'm Erica J. Green. You can find me on all social media, Erica J-A-Y-E Green.
What's going on, people? It's your girl, McCall Hall. And when sports and pop culture collide, you can find me on social media at McCall Hall.
So yeah, I'm so riled up. I mean, I don't know. I'm on a roller coaster right now. Maybe we should have watched it like a couple of days before we did the show.
I'm not gonna watch it by myself too because I was crying. I'm over here like, you're like.
I have to get this without no commercial breaks. I want to see it like in its entirety, like start to finish.
I want to see it with some wine.
Yeah, definitely need it.
Sprite didn't do it for me. I needed more than Sprite.
Yeah,
I needed a clear head to fully digest.
Oh my God. So we start off with Chicken George and Tom Lee just kind of bonding, and for me it didn't feel right, but I guess you that's the dynamic of the time. How did you guys feel about their relationship, how it started to grow?
Well, I guess it was like naturally you would have some type of paternal bond.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't know that it was his father, but just under those circumstances, how horrible is that to find out that your massa is your father?
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of disgusting a little bit.
But I feel like, Chicken George, well, I mean, just George at this point, because he wasn't officially Chicken George.
Yeah.
I think he was just looking for a place to belong. You know what I mean? He just wanted to feel like he belonged somewhere.
Yeah, I felt that was the awkwardness of this whole setup, because you had Tom Lee, who actually wasn't he wasn't the aristocratic upper class, slave owner. So he almost had a simpatico with the slaves to some degree, because he was, essentially shit on his entire life.
Yeah, because he was Irish.
Yeah, so he had some understanding, so he treated them a little bit better, but obviously
they were his money makers.
Well, yeah, there was money makers. And when I say treated better, I mean to the extent that he didn't have the sort of I'm better than you attitude that some of the other slave owners seemed to have because of maybe his own treatment as an Irishman. And so at times I was like, oh, this guy's a better slave owner. That's a good thing. And then you get mad at yourself. No, he's a slave owner, you know?
But that definitely didn't make him a better person. He had like a ingrained hatred for them as quickly as he turned on George. Knew that was his son. Yeah. And turned on him like that at a drop of a dime. Chained him up, turned guns on him. That just... I can't.
And George wanted so bad to earn his affection.
Yeah.
There was something about Tom Lee, and again, George didn't know right off the bat that was his father, but he wanted him to feel like you could trust me. He was trying to gain that trust the entire time until he realized there's no point in trying to trust Tom Lee.
Yeah, and I was a little disgusted by that culture of, I remember George... He looked up to Mingo so much because of the way the white guy would pat him on the back and kind of cheer him up. How did you guys feel about that want of acceptance and
Mingo
praise?
Tried to tell him.
Yeah.
You got to listen to the old heads. Yeah. Mingo tried to tell you, stop trying to assimilate and become close to Tom Lee. He's never going to see you for more than what you are.
Yeah.
To him.
And he took that lesson, but it took, obviously several decades. It took him some decades. What did you guys think about the whole dynamic between Kizzy and Tom Lee? Because now, I hated the fact that she almost accepted rape as a part of her life at this point.
That's what you have to do. I mean, we spoke about it last time. You just get to a point in your head where you numb yourself from feeling anything around you, physical, mentally, or you accept it to get on with your life. I mean, unless you go crazy.
Yeah.
I think Kizzy probably realized that Tom Lee, because he knew that was his son, right? So Tom Lee could have been a lot harder on George. Not trying to act like Tom Lee was being sympathetic or being, compassionate at all, but I'm sure he could have been a little bit rougher with him. And I think that Kizzy, doing what mothers do, accepted this rape culture to really protect George.
Yeah, because that part made me so sick. Because I love that she kind of stood up to him. She had the knife, and she stood up to him during that little scene in the kitchen. But then she still said, "Now do what you're gonna do, and then be quick about it." That to me was just
she knew
sacrifices that she's literally sacrificed her whole life to the end of it for her family.
Yeah,
sacrificed her own happiness. I just couldn't fathom. I know when I'm a little bit upset, I'm like, oh, my life is over. Like, no, their life was really done.
Yeah,
spoken for.
There wasn't nobody pulling up your skirt.
Yeah.
I'm just being real.
So we
next scene.
Next. But yeah, so we get this to this point where I guess George is coming to his own, and he finds he's got this sort of talent with the chickens. And how did you guys feel about him getting that skill and kind of embracing it? He has got the gift of gab, it looks like.
He had to shuck and drive for his freedom.
Yeah.
Oh, what a beautiful, thank you, Master, for giving me this opportunity to please you. No, I'm glad that they're showing it in the light that they're showing it. Seeing how there were talents, there were abilities that these slaves had that kept them alive. It wasn't just, by the grace of their masters.
Yeah.
It was, we were working hard, literally from day in to day night, up to night. Yeah. To stay alive.
Yeah.
So that's just what he was doing.
I feel like George probably had it a little bit, and I hate to say easier because we all know that's BS.
Yeah.
No slave had it easy, right? You're a slave. But because, again, George was Tom Lee's son, Tom Lee brought him into the fold of a lot of things as he was maturing as a young man. So he was able to see how people interact, and he was able to pick up on social skills and social things to help him assimilate and have a little bit of an advantage. Because, like you said, he's got a way of, you say shucking and jiving. I'm going to just say, he's charismatic. Yeah. He developed this charisma, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's because he probably watched people that interacted with Tom Lee and whatnot, and so that's what he started to develop, because he said, if I'm going to get out of here, I've got to act like this.
Yeah.
But that's because he wasn't in the field as much. He was playing with the chickens.
So he adapted a little bit.
I'm saying, but isn't that a mentality that we kind of adapt this day and age, where we're in a certain arena, like say you're at work, you act one certain way around these people.
If you want that promotion.
I know one of my sisters does it all the time. She'll talk to us, what's up, food? And then she'll be like, hello. Yeah. How are you doing today?
Until you realize what's out there for you, though. Until you realize someone's really screwing you over. Yeah. And that's what we got when he found out, wait, I could be free? When he's there talking to, I forget the...
Marcellus?
Yeah, Marcellus. Marcellus tells him, I bought my freedom. And you see the little spark, you see a little kunta come alive when he realizes, wait, freedom's a thing I can reach for.
Shout out to Marcellus. I don't know who played Marcellus, but if you are ever in the LA area, my phone number is 207.
I can.
He was a good-looking man. I mean, he first of all, you could tell this man legitimately had money. The second you laid eyes on him, you said, he wasn't from around there. Yeah. Very clean-cut, and we discovered that he's purchased his own freedom.
And who else is going to get the heart of Kizzy? It's got to be somebody
with some money.
Of that kunta ilk,
And I love what Kizzy told George. She was like, learn how to read so you can be your own man. And I think some of us take that for granted this day and age. Yeah. So a lot of us feel like, books, they're nice to put up on your shelves and stuff like that, but that can make you who you're going to become, who you are.
And I think that probably transfers into a lot of things for us. For slaves, it was learning how to read because you couldn't do that. I think as African Americans in this country, we've had to develop a whole nother a system to learn business, learn technology.
Everything.
All these things now that we're having to take on so that we can have a better opportunity. It's a transfer. It's a transfer and a progression for us.
Yeah, and you saw the power of it when, Kizzy's are teaching, Tom Lee's wife to read, you know?
Silly ass Patricia.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand Patricia's ass. Patricia got on my damn nerve. God.
Wait, why did she get on your nerves?
Because she's always wanted to play like a victim, like, oh my God, I don't know,
She wanted to cover her eyes to everything. The minute the money ran dry, she was gone.
Yeah. Patricia was just so weak.
She was just trying to get
That's why
too.
Tom Lee stayed in that barn messing with Kizzy. Patricia probably just lay there like a dead fish and didn't do. I mean,
you thought she wasn't doing
it. You know what I liked? What they added with bringing in that character of Patricia. It also showed how they viewed women. We were nothing more. I mean, imagine being a black woman.
You were
because they hardly cared about the white women.
Yeah. Lower than low.
It was.
Don't get me wrong on that.
It was tough to watch, but I've always wondered how, I guess, white people watching this feel, because I know that it's.
I wish we could have watched with a white person. And I love my white people. Yeah, okay, I love my white people, but I wish I could have watched with one white person.
Because
had a person on the panel would have been nice.
Yeah, because I identify so much with the black people and the thing, trying to fight for freedom, and I actually found myself for a moment identifying with Tom Lee when he gets invited to that Easter dinner, and the guy's like kind of letting him know that I'm way better than you, and I was like, wait, that's not equitable. And so I wonder if they would have also been able to identify with the black people during this time. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm not white, so I can't answer that. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Were there moments you identified with white people in this at all?
The only time I identified with a white person during this, gosh, that's a really tough question. You got to come back to me on that.
This material was so heavy.
I mean, I don't think I ever had a moment where my gut reaction was just to feel for a white person. They never really gave us a chance in this. I mean, every other word we were the N-word.
Yeah.
How could I feel for you? You just called me
Well, that Tom Lee moment where, and then they're having the duel, and he's talking to him, Chicken George is saying, get up, shoot this guy, kill this guy. I guess I identified with him in that sense.
I have no feelings for Tom Lee. Keep going back to him.
I couldn't feel for Tom Lee. I never got to a point where I could feel for him.
He was an ignorant man.
Yeah.
From the beginning to the end, not true to his word. That's the first sign of an ignorant man.
Yeah.
So no, I have nothing.
That Easter dinner, lunch, whatever they were having, brunch, I felt like Tom Lee went there feeling like he had something to prove. He could have just gone there and just shut the hell up and just had his deviled eggs and ham, but he kind of went there with a chip on his shoulder. You know what I mean? So if there was a point for me to feel for him or relate to him a little bit, maybe that was it. But that's
and I think for me that's where I get, because to me he was a survivalist, and he was just trying to survive, and this was a construct that was almost.
And that dude told him straight up, because remember when they got up and got into that altercation at the Easter dinner, he said, "You're an Irishman. Yeah. I will never have respect for you."
And I think that's why I identified with him, because I felt that he was being discriminated against in that one isolated moment.
I wouldn't say I identified, but there was a unity moment for me when Anna Paquin's character, I can't remember her name, when she was saying, I'm not for this.
Yeah.
We go to church and we praise the same Lord who says, these are all my children. And I was like, that's right. Yeah. How did we forget? We've forgotten that now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's the only time I was like, man, I would stand with you, sister.
Yeah.
I could see myself being with
total,
her on that.
Yeah, it wasn't total vilification.
But what I couldn't understand is why, when people especially try to justify using the Bible, justifying slavery, how did that equate? I just didn't understand that.
Not my God.
Yeah, that's exactly. So whenever she said that really, I was kind of like, that's common sense. It's like everything else, this is stupidity.
Yeah, we had that powerful moment when they're talking to the preacher. Do they let you preach about Exodus? Do they let you preach about these certain things? Because no, they wouldn't. Because
what they take out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think
that's a whole nother.
Yeah, it showed you just how
now.
even religion was used in ways to keep people down.
You imprison the mind first.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you saw that because these were people that were born and lived in slavery.
Yeah.
And so it took people that were out of it to say, hey, wake up. This is not, there's no calm.
Because I was thinking about the last scene again. When you said they was born and lived in slavery, I kept thinking about the end part. Like, what would you do?
Yeah, of course.
Once you get a taste of freedom. But
not to mention the fact that some people probably didn't even think it was possible. This was their life and they'd accepted it.
Yeah. That's why religion is so important to African Americans now, because we relied on the good book to kind of lead us out.
Yeah, and how do you guys feel? I know you probably had some touching moments there when Marcellus left Kizzy.
Wait, can we just get into this real quick? Just a scene that I would just, again, I'm maybe the silly one here, maybe the crazy one, but when Tom Lee went into that barn after Kizzy and Marcellus made passionate love.
I think you tried to pause you were trying to pause.
I tried. Look, and Marcellus stood up with those glistening calf muscles, and he was butt naked in front of Tom Lee. And I'm sure Tom Lee was a little jealous because I'm sure Marcellus had that. I
can't with you. There's kids listening.
If I were jealous at any moment during Roots, that was the scene for me to be jealous. Ooh, Marcellus was a good-looking man.
We know your magic moment, so that was it.
No, just again, Kinsey, she was just giving.
Yeah.
She gave up so much for her children, and I guess that's all you have to hold on to is your family.
Yeah.
When you have nothing else, no property, nothing is yours.
Yeah.
And I'm very territorial because I'm really a triplet. I have two.
Oh, you have another one?
Yes.
Wow. We just discovered she's a twin. Now she's telling me she's a triplet.
So I'm all about my stuff. This is mine. This is mine. So can you imagine not being able to own anything? You don't even own yourself.
No. Yeah, and you're just constantly trying to buy your own freedom.
Men can go in and out of you. They can do whatever they want to you. They can take your family away. They can your wife in front of you. That part I just had to turn my head, made him watch. Like, watch me, your wife.
Yeah.
I'm beeping it out myself.
But I think that was what the series was really good about, was making you as uneasy as the slaves were at that time. You never felt safe.
No.
There were moments where I was like, okay, this is good. Maybe they could, and then before you know it, some other person had to leave or die or was killed. There was never any semblance of continuation of family. It was very difficult for them to find that constant.
You know, a dynamic that I want to throw out there, going back to Tom Lee and with George and, that whole paternal thing, I feel like Tom Lee had more of an interest in Kizzy than just his property. Because when Marcellus, there was some jealousness there. Because Marcellus said, "Name your price. I'll pay for Kizzy and I'll take her with me." And I think Tom Lee was kind of like, "I don't give a damn how much money you have. That's my booty."
I wouldn't call that love, though.
It's not love. It's not love.
No, I don't want anyone playing with my doll. Why are you touching my stuff? Well, no, that's all that was.
No, but I think it kind of showed the complexity of the time. I mean, because he's been raping for years, right? And she's had some sort of compliance with it. So to him, what was rape may not have been exactly rape.
Blurred lines.
Yeah, exactly. And so in his mind, he's kind of got a family
he doesn't understand a situation.
Yeah,
it's sick.
It's sick as you describe it, but I think for him, he was kind of like, I've got to find another slave woman to accept what I'm doing to her, like the way Kizzy has done for years and has pretty much kept her mouth shut about it.
And how complex the situation where she threatens to kill him if he ever touches the kids, and he says, "Those are my grandchildren too." Because she didn't register anything of family with that, but he obviously did. So there was a complex sort of dynamic.
It was really complex.
Oh my gosh, we talked about the level of restraint that was used by slaves back in the day, because I just don't know if I would have been able to have it, and I kudos to them, because I would have gone off left and right.
But imagine that the best way to protect your children is to be raped by the master and then have it be his child, so that way he's not going to rape the child because it's his child.
I was just worried because that knife looked real dull that Kizzy pulled on him. Real dull.
She would have drove it right into.
She looked like she was serious though, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of that, it was. My favorite part, I think, was probably that Nat Turner Rebellion, because that was the first time you really saw all the slave owners go, "What the hell is happening?"
Fear.
And that was fear. And it was the first time they were able to instill in them that same fear they have felt. So what do you guys think about that whole...
I thought it was great product placement, because Nate Parker is executive producing and starring in this new Nat Turner film. And I think Gabrielle Union's also a part of it.
Great.
So it was a great precursor for people who aren't aware and familiar with the whole Nat Turner story to watch this and then be ready for this movie that's coming out soon. But I thought it was great. I mean, I studied Nat Turner in college, and I mean, it was just so intelligent for him to take the route he took during that time. He killed men, women, children.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds terrible, but Nat Turner really could understand that slavery really wouldn't end unless we killed everybody.
Extreme.
Because going back to the previous episodes, think about little Missy. Missy was only, 4 or 5?
Yeah.
And she started to take on the acceptance of slavery. So they had to kill the kids too.
Yeah, of course. And it was just the first time that they had really instilled that fear. And I guess I was like...
It was a beacon of hope.
Yeah.
Because slaves have never tried to kill the women and the children before.
the way they were doing with the slaves.
Yeah, they might try to whoop one of the master's ass. Yeah. But they never went into the house and tried to kill Patricia.
So it was just as jarring to them as slavery as a whole.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But so we get Chicken George back at the farm, and now they're going off to Charleston for the big one, the big prize here. And we see what happens. That scene really was just lift you up and then throw you back down. That was one of the tough ones for me, to see someone win their freedom in a moment and then be ripped away.
He's been manipulating George since day one, since he was a child, and that's all I've ever saw within their relationship. Let me get him under my arm. Let me like work my way into his head.
Yeah.
You know, it's never really been like oh well, this is my son, let me keep an eye out for him.
No. Yeah.
It's been, let me see how much I can use him.
Yeah.
Let me see how much I can have him just kind of conform to me a little bit more. So.
And it's so funny because, you know, leading up to that moment where they're in Charleston, you know, Chicken George is trying to assure Kizzy, I know what I'm doing. I know. And she's not, no, you don't. Yeah. You don't know what you're doing, right? And then
listen to your woman.
Yeah.
Listen to your mama, everybody. And then to see Chicken George basically get an understanding of entrepreneurship, being a businessman, trying to save money, and understanding it to a point where he can actually start earning. That was a beautiful thing for him. And it just hurt me to see it end the way that it ended for him, because he was starting to get the hang of how to ask for money, how to negotiate getting your money, how to save your money. It was, you could see his maturation.
Yeah, it was tough. And I guess we got to go back to Mingo, because Mingo was a big character, and we see how he played a role for Chicken George, and how ultimately, you know, we see Tom Lay willing to abandon any sort of camaraderie he had with them in that moment.
Yeah, I love the relationship between Mingo and George. I wish that there were more relationships like that in the present day. Yeah. Where older men would take younger men under their arms and teach them.
It took some time though, because initially he was like,
I'm not like, hey, 20 years passed by.
Yeah, how you not?
Yeah, because I mean, you got to think about it. Mingo started teaching Chicken George before he was Chicken George.
Yeah.
Remember he you know, showed him how to take care of the chickens, and George had to pee on the chicken and all that. I mean, he's literally been hands-on with this kid since he was a really little boy.
And it wasn't until the end where it seemed like Chicken George had come into his own that you see Mingo soften, and you see that sort of humanity between him and Chicken George.
I think the whole time he was there trying to lead him, teach him, like you were saying, he was, even when he was acting like he wasn't really
he was his fiddler.
Yeah, he was helping him out along the way, because he probably already foresaw what was going to happen. I'm not going to be around too much longer.
Yeah.
And Mingo probably knew that Chicken George was Tom Lee's little illegitimate biracial child.
Probably knew.
I'm sure everyone knew.
So he was trying to protect him, like, don't get all caught up in feelings with this man. He raped your mama to get you.
And we get that from Chicken George, where he says, how do you think I didn't know, but I drowned the truth, you know? I'm the only one that looks like this, and I'm with this guy all day, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was tough hearing him say, I drowned the truth, because what else could you do in those circumstances? You know, you're still a slave on the farm, your mom is still there. Can you retaliate against Tom Lay? No, you can't. You know?
And just, you know, for a little bit of historical context, I mean, if you think about it, for George, he's probably thinking, okay, so my dad is a slave owner. He's free. Well, why am I not free?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this goes back to the whole one-drop rule. If you have even a drop of black blood in you, you are black, you are enslaved. So that's a whole nother piece mentally that he's had to overcome through his maturation.
Yeah, and I think that underscores the hatred they had for black people at the time, that even just one drop means you are not part of us and we will treat you as a slave.
Yeah.
Just incredible. And so we get Chicken George going over to England, and I guess he gets some sort of a better life to some degree.
Well, after that cockfight, after that, first of all, people will hustle you.
Yeah.
Okay, people will hustle you in any kind of like competitive setting. And I had a feeling there's no way that these guys with all this money are going to put out their best, you know, competitive chicken out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Something told me this is not going to end well. I mean, yes, he drew up the papers. He said you'll be free if this chicken wins. But something told me that it's not going to end that way. So it really broke my heart when they went and got that supersized steroid-injected chicken to, you know, beat up on Chicken George's chicken.
And that whole scene just shows you what ignorance can put you back a step. Yeah. George didn't know that you had to register the papers. He's putting his life in this man's hands, and he didn't even know that this was nothing.
Because technically, even if that chicken fight had ended with one round and they won, if Tom Lee doesn't go to the county office, those papers are still illegitimate.
And that was the power, I guess, of being able to read, and then of knowledge. You know, just knowledge is the barrier that they tried to keep from slaves, because they knew once you know things, then all of a sudden you have power.
Because Chicken George was celebrating after that first round win, like he legitimately could walk away and be done.
And he thought he was ready to go home and call it a day.
I hate that saying that they say when they say, if you want to keep something from black folks, put it in a book. Put the cure for cancer in a book. Just put it in a book, and they would never figure it out. That just sets us back.
Yeah, and I think it was powerful. I love that they kept that thread up through the entire series of them teaching the next generation to read, and the next generation to read, and the next generation to read. And actually, I love that they kept that up. I hated the fact they named that kid Tom, but I loved that they kept up Kunta's tradition of naming the children. And so what do you guys think about that, how they were able to keep those sort of themes running through?
I just think it's so important to keep traditions alive. No matter if you have a tradition within your family, like I celebrate Shabbos sometimes with my job, and I think it's the most amazing thing. It's a Jewish holiday on the weekends. It's just you have to shut off everything, and but it's something that they've passed down, and it brings unity. So when you keep traditions, it can bring unity, and you keep that lineage, and you just keep that going and pass it down. I do wish she would have taught more people to read. Just not inside your family, because these are all your brothers and sisters.
Oh, well, they couldn't, you know. You get caught.
I mean, but if I really wanted to learn meat on there, excuse me, Kizzy.
Because, you know, Tom Lee made mention of it. I can't remember if it came later in the series or what, but he said, you know, I let you teach George how to read. And technically I wasn't supposed to do that. But, you know, regarding naming the fourth child Tom, Kizzy reminded them of something. And this goes back to Kizzy being a mother, being nurturing, and sacrificing. Kizzy has been raped for years to really and truly protect George from harsh treatment. She knew he was going to be treated like crap, but there's a level to the crap, right? She knew if you don't name this child Tom, he's going to be mad. He's going to be really hard on this kid. Right? Could Tom Lee really be hard on a kid named after him? I mean, of course he's going to.
It's his grandson,
you know, but he knows it's his bloodline, right? So I think that was just another moment where Kizzy had to be the wiser elder and remind them, don't make it hard for the next generation. We're trying to make it easier for them. Every elder in this had to do something to humble themselves to protect the next generation, because Kizzy knew, hell, I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be gone from here.
And I was sad to. I was sad this was a historical piece, because there was no happy ending. I kept searching for Kunta to come back, and every time they jumped 10 years or 12 years, I was thinking, could Kunta be alive? I'm counting the
Kunta
years.
Still be alive?
Come on, you're gonna come back? I want him to come back. But we get, at least Chicken George comes back to the farm, but of course discovers his mom has passed.
Yeah, that was sad.
Yeah.
That was really sad.
Lived her whole life looking out for his son, but didn't even get to see him before
he was
she
gone
died.
for 20 years.
20 years, and praying that he would come back, and just to know that she never got that sort of.
What cracks me up is Tom Lee trying to tell Chicken George, well, it'll fly by. 20 years is not fly by.
Yeah. And I love that scene that they had. There was a catharsis to that scene where he gets to confront Tom Lee and say the things he really wanted to say, you know. And I guess he takes the gun from Tom Lee, and now he goes to the Murray farm. What do you guys think about
his behavior when he first? It looked like he started learning after a while, but just being so flashy. George's behavior. I was like, you're not Chicken George anymore. This is a family that's trying to keep their heads under. Well, you know, when you go into enemy territory, you don't sit there, hey, I'm here, let me show you my different colors. No, you fly under the radar. And him doing that, I thought it was very disrespectful to his wife, who's been waiting for him. And they're all trying to, like, we're just
putting them at risk.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, what's your point?
Because it looks foolish. He never got a chance. Well, he had a better life. You know, he really, when Marcella saw him, he said, I thought you might be a free man. And then he goes over to England. So he never lived with the same fear that a lot of the other slaves had lived with. So I think that's why he was a little bit more reckless when it came to showing.
Do you think that was an advantage for him or a disadvantage?
It was probably a disadvantage in dealing with people, but an advantage in terms of my life is better. You know, he had freedoms that other slaves just didn't have.
I think the other slave, going back to Mingo, and may God rest his soul, I think Mingo recognized the fact that, you know, George had something in him that was a little bit different, and he believed that George really could become free. Because going back a little bit, Mingo left that money in the feed and told him before he died, I left you some money, because Mingo believed that he could be freed.
You know
what I mean? So I think it's not just just George believing that I can, use his charisma to improve my situation. I think other people saw it in him. He was like the chosen one.
Yeah, and I'm a vegan, so shout out to Mingo, because he was like, oh, I just eat the feet. I don't mess with that meat. I was like, yeah, vegans back in the day.
Mingo said that? I didn't even catch that part.
He said he just eats the feet with the barley, and he had made a special.
He was so happy about that.
Maybe I need to start eating chicken feet. Nah, I'll take Wingstop. I love chicken.
So
I'm not eating chicken after the cockfight.
Oh yeah, that was tough to watch.
No type of flying anything.
But we get that whole thing. So we get Chicken George returns, and already they're trying to use the law against him. So on the Murray farm, they say, you know what? If he's in the state for 90 days, on the 91st day we can round him up and make him a slave.
Just let them be free. That to me, I was like, really?
They're still trying. They're still trying.
Trying everything. But you got to think about it again. At this point, they're trying to figure out how to keep an infrastructure of money and a surplus of money and resources. Like, they don't want to just let these people go.
Yeah.
We know it's wrong, but
pay them.
They didn't want to do that. Why?
They didn't human beings.
But
it becomes economic, because it almost felt like the master of the mass, I don't know, of the Murray farm, he didn't feel racist. But he certainly felt like this was his economic means of surviving. His son was clearly just, off the reservation.
Yeah.
But he didn't feel racist, but it let you know that there were people there that were economically invested in slavery, that they had to try to keep it going.
Yeah, they did. I mean, at the end of the day, it became about livelihood.
Yeah. I loved Anna Paquin's character. I thought she played that brilliantly, and we talked a little bit about her. And I'm glad they showed different types of white people. It wasn't completely like this is the worst race or whatever. That there were people that were Christians, and we had the Christians in the earlier episodes, and now we have Anna Paquin, who's a spy for the North. What did you think about that whole dynamic?
Well, you know that there had to be people like that, and that's because we're human beings. We have compassion.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they showed the ability for people to use their human compassion and drop the need to have money, and the need for money.
I like with I can't think of Mekhi Phifer's character, but what he said about why he came back, why he left his family, why he put his life in danger. He was like, there's no way I could comfortably live my life.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's brothers and sisters of mine being mistreated, beaten every day, can't close one eye without, thinking someone's going to come in here and rape me. And that, to give your life, I would think, would I do that now for strangers?
Yeah.
That was so strong and impactful to me, just seeing that. So.
But it's interesting because I feel like it's always going to be the women, in these situations when we watch these kind of films that have the compassion. Because going back to what we were saying earlier, they are disenfranchised. What kind of life do they really have? So they can be a little more sympathetic for these slaves, because the women are pretty much in the same predicament.
Yeah. And
still to this day.
And that's another.
Wages. That's another
topic altogether. That a lot of these themes we see running very strongly today.
And I love that about this show. I love that about this show. They're touching on so much stuff that's relevant to today.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they're intentionally doing so. It's just what's happening. But
no, I think. And again, I would love to, maybe hear an interview from Will Packer and the production crew maybe next week to hear about their whole, review of the show and the series. But I do think that they tried to purposely make some things so hard hitting that you understand it for present day.
Yeah.
I think that they did strategically say certain lines in a certain way for that reason.
That made that underscored what was still happening today.
Yeah.
But we have to talk a little bit about Cyrus, aka T.I.
Do we have to?
We have to. I love T.I., but it took me right out of the moment, right?
I mean, there were parts
I have to be honest.
Yeah, there were parts where I was literally on the edge of the chair in it, and then T.I. pops up,
He's
and I'm
so
like,
contemporary.
what you know about that?
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, oh.
Let me just say this. I heard that T.I. was going to be in Roots, right? Yeah. And I said to myself, well, T.I. has been trying to solidify his ability as an actor for years. Yeah. And I said to myself, well, this is honestly the only role I could see him doing and playing well, because T.I. came out of the womb just country.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was like T.I. was just playing himself dipped in dirt.
But he wasn't even doing his own.
He looked like to me he was like T.I. trying to play like some... I wish he would have just been more of himself actually in the role. because I felt he was a little bit much. It took me out of the element.
He was a comedic relief, I think,
to
in the
some
whole
degree.
Because I was like, what? He wasn't really talking about anything important. You know, he saved his life. He saved George's life. Okay, we'll give you that.
Yeah, and I like T.I., but to me, it was just T.I. I saw him on. I was like, what's he doing in this movie?
Well, I would be interested to see his contract for this series, for the Roots series, because, and I will say this for a few of the actors on here. Production-wise, I thought it was great. The cinematic art was fantastic, but I highly doubt that these slaves had teeth that looked as pristine. T.I. has porcelain veneer teeth, like in present day, and they let him keep those porcelain perfect veneers in the show.
Yeah. And I love.
You couldn't give him a prosthetic like grill.
I love Anika Noni Rose. I love her, but why did they switch? Because they aged up Reggie Pierre. They aged him up.
Izzy's contract was
they aged up everybody
one.
else except they said, you know what, we're gonna go with a different actress for the older Kizzy.
But they didn't do it for George.
Yeah, exactly. They aged up everyone else but Kizzy,
I can't say
right?
much because she killed it.
Yeah, she was so good though.
Oh yeah, she killed it for sure.
Yeah.
Killed it. I mean, the earlier Kinsey killed it too, but this.
Yeah,
she was just phenomenal.
She was a great Kizzy, and this is a little off topic, but Anika Noni Rose, if I'm not mistaken, she played a role in a movie called For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide. Do you remember that Anika Noni Rose? I believe she had a scene where she was raped.
Yeah, she was raped.
So
by her man she was dating.
Yeah, so she has a history of rape scenes. So they knew she could handle this.
Yeah.
They knew she could handle this.
Yeah, I wonder if that was an issue going forward. But yeah, I loved it, but it threw me off initially that they kind of switched characters.
I was like, who is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we had this whole war and that whole scene where they give up and they wave the white flag and then they only kill the black people of the regiment.
They made it a point to drive in so much how much the hatred was so prevalent back in those days. Like, we're gonna take the survivors in, but we're gonna kill all you black people. That just
to them it was.
They're all traitors, though.
And to them it was their property. And when I say property, they thought they had a feeling that they had given something to these people who were property. Not only are you my property, I've taken care of you well because I've given you things I didn't have to give you. A cabin, really? I let you build a cabin. So you see that hatred and that disgust. It was hard to watch.
And one of the sergeants was like, "Stop!
Yeah,
just stop! Can you stop?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Really? Really? Yeah. That's how much you hated them for their skin color. Some of them didn't even want to fight, but they didn't have anything else to do, anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
And they knew that.
But let's think about how terrible this is. You have African slaves fighting for a country where they are not considered to be people.
Yeah.
Because historically slaves were only 2/3 of a person.
Yeah.
So
less than that.
So the way mathematically you broke down slaves, you'd have to have 2 slaves to make 1 person.
Yeah.
Because they were only considered to be 2/3 of a person. You've got slaves fighting for a country where they're not even considered to be a full human being.
Ridiculous. And we finally get freedom, and it was such an anticlimactic moment because where can they go? What can they do? So we had this moment of, we're free, thank God they're free, but they weren't really.
And can we talk about how those soldiers were like, we fought for y'all?
Yeah.
Well, we blood, sweat, and tears for y'all, for this country.
Yeah. Without any
I thought that was such
recompense.
a disgusting statement to say to them. They're trying to just get away for their lives, and you're going to stop them and say, we're sick of y'all.
Yeah, and I think it was good to show that because I think it was good to show that because of course the North was fighting, but it wasn't a complete fight for the abolition of slavery. People in the North were fighting for other things as well.
There are other things involved.
There was complex attitudes on the North side as well as on the South side.
And the thing is, people in the North, they didn't really own as many slaves. I mean, there were slaves up towards the North, but it was really saturated in the southern states. The other stat that I want to throw out that just blew my mind, 200,000 slaves were killed during the war.
Wow.
200,000. That's a lot of bloodshed.
Slavery, the war, it was just it destroyed families, it destroyed communities. It was
because you're looking at these plantations, you're like, they probably had like what 200 or 300 people on a plantation.
Yeah.
But think about it, 200,000, and basically this is men because women weren't fighting. Men lost their lives.
Think of all those families missing a father now. What do y'all think about the blacks owning other blacks?
Well,
black slave owners.
Yeah, they touched on that really. That some people
Briefly,
did. Yeah. So, but this guy, I guess, he was pretending in the series.
But there was a good amount.
He was pretending because it was happening.
No. There were people that were really owning other slaves.
You know what? I don't know too much about it, but I think it was survival of the fittest at that point, where it was just they were surviving, and then they saw it as an economic opportunity to some extent.
Yeah, it was economics.
But it was completely wrong. But
it was wrong. But again, the treatment of those people who are working for you, the way you are treating them is not so much based on their color.
Yeah.
Right. They're just looking at this as business.
Yeah.
That's where it differs a little bit. I'm not in agreement at all.
Especially they should know, given the fact that they might have been slaves themselves, or at least witnessed it. You know, what it's like. You know.
Yeah.
But mentalities, I think, at that time, you're in it and you're living a certain mentality, and you don't necessarily see, from the outside in. But it was a.
I mean, well, at that point, we got to be honest, though. If you are a freed slave by your freedom, you have to create some kind of net worth, if you will, and you're not going to go to the North. Well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like at that point, we don't have a real infrastructure that's built with different factories and things. And I mean, the country was still developing at that point. What was there for them to do? They couldn't go get a job in Microsoft. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough.
And we have that scene. So at the end, we get to this point where the slaves are leaving, and Frederick, of course, comes out, and he still says, regardless of what's taking place in this war, there will be men like me. What did you guys think of that scene? I thought that was just
that
so
scene
powerful.
made me actually holler and scream a little bit, because I'm like, and these people still exist in the South.
Chilled me when he said that.
That was a very chilling line.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, and we'll get a little political here, you talk about a guy like Donald Trump, and his whole motto is get this country back to where it was.
Yeah, make it great again.
Make it great again. Yeah. Like this guy is referring to, we're going to get you guys back in your place of slavery.
All it takes is one person to plant that seed. Hitler was the same way. Just takes, and that blows my mind how someone can plant a seed of hatred and it grows like that. Like, I'm like, are you a drone or something to believe what people are saying when they say hate this other person?
Cool, because Frederick only saw it as something of, I had something that I no longer have, and so that to him was
best moment.
I love that scene though.
Best moment.
I love that scene, and all African Americans in this country have a connection to the South. Like, I always say, well, I got family in the South. Who doesn't? Like, that's where we originated from. That's when they brought us here, we went to the South, right? But I have family in the South, and they used to tell me when I was a kid, white Southerners can't stand when you look them in the eye.
Oh my gosh.
Or, because it can be intimidating for them. Like, white Southerners who are still very conservative and still believe in the old South, they don't want you looking them in the eye. They don't want you referring to them as their first name. And it was so powerful for me when Tom referred to Frederick as Frederick.
Yeah.
That was like, I don't care about you anymore. Yeah. You're not my master no more. You're Frederick. And for Frederick, that was worse than getting hit in the face. A slave calling you by your first name and looking you dead in your eye?
And telling you he doesn't want to be equal to you. He doesn't want to be equal to who you are.
It's crazy in the South. My mom literally took us out of high school because they were still flying the Confederate flag, and just all the African American people were having problems after problems with the school.
It's
like
crazy.
This is present day. This is like maybe 10 years ago or something. I'm aging myself. But I'm just like, really, this stuff is seriously still going on. They dragged a man through Jasper, tied him up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And dragged him through Jasper, and we don't even drive through there to go visit my family. So this is not stuff that's, we're watching it. Oh, wow, that's so far away from us.
Yeah.
No, this is stuff that is still right here at home.
We could talk about this for hours, but we have to wrap up. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you take away from this series, especially in today's age?
Well, one thing I want to hit on before we wrap up is the creation of sharecropping.
Yeah.
So the these were left on these plantations, and they said, well, we'll give you this land.
Some acres and a mule and deal.
So there's a joke, like, we're still waiting on our 40 acres and a mule, because what ended up happening was we didn't get any of what we were owed. We're still waiting. They claim, we're going to give you guys all this property and all this land to cultivate, and you can own it. And that we never got any of it.
Yeah.
We never got any of it. They sat there and lied to them again.
Well,
You know,
and a lot of it's still happening today.
Yeah, and I mean that was just tough for me to see because you know my father's from the South, from Lubbock, Texas. Grew up in you know, picking cotton with sharecroppers. I mean, it went on for so long, trying to dig themselves out of debt, and it's like, why are you even in debt?
We're running a race, then we're already behind.
Like we run the race, essentially win the race, and then get placed 10 steps back, and these sharecroppers are trying to, you know, earn enough money to get out of their situation.
And all along the way, people fight you and say you're not 10 steps back, you're actually where you should be. And so...
in your place.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, what did you guys take it from it in this modern day? Like, what was your takeaway from this miniseries?
Well, I said this in the trailer. I was mentioning how production-wise, it's very interesting seeing an African American versus an African, and I just it was very subtle in this, but I don't know if people paid attention because of the rapes of slave women and that racial mixing that the African Americans in this series, you could tell they started looking less and less African. Yeah. But what I loved was the tradition that we tried to keep with naming the children. We always try to keep that tradition. You can try to dilute our blood a little bit, but that tradition, we're going to keep it. Yeah. That was my takeaway. Keep the tradition. Know where you come from.
Yeah. I just hope that all people, black, white, purple, watch this show or watch anything remotely like this show and take away that we can be united. Hatred doesn't do anything but produce the outcome of death and sadness and more death. There's no good outcome for hatred. Yeah. And that's what I hope people watch, is because I've seen all these little things. Oh, why we have to keep watching these shows about slavery? I don't want to remember that. Well, we need to. Yeah, it's important. You touched on it the other day when you said we're soft now.
Yeah, we're soft. And the other thing is, and I love the idea of us, you know, all being united and everything. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of people who just want to get back to that old South. And I think this show...
ignorance.
Just ignorant. I think for African Americans who are watching this show, this really stresses the importance of you being self-sufficient, educating yourself, advancing yourself, because they don't... Well, I don't want to say they anymore, but... Yeah. It hasn't been celebrated for us to be educated and to advance. And this series showed us you have to. Somebody sacrificed so you could.
And hopefully with Barack Obama, that's something that we value now. We know
gave
that
us some hope, but I think to some people that was just a joke. It was just a figurehead.
But that if you educate yourself and you work hard, you can be president of the United States. So I think that's always a good lesson. But I think for me, I took a lot of the same stuff you took away, which was tradition. I loved when they were playing the song at the Murray Farm, that was Kuntz's song that he had played, and it played throughout. I love at the end when they raise up the child, and he goes, I don't know how to do this, but let me do my best. And I think that's what the series is, because we had the series in '77, which I never saw, and now I'm seeing it, and it's very powerful to me. But there's kids seeing it too, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah. And I think keeping that tradition and what happened alive, it makes us go forward. It makes us go forward together, hopefully.
And again, like we talked about on Tuesday, I think. You know, we weren't given the luxury of having written and recorded histories of who our parents were, who our grandparents were, because they were being ripped and torn apart all the time. So we have to keep this tradition of telling the story, because we'll never know. We can't go back and look it up.
Yeah, and I gotta give shout out to Roots for finally giving me a little bit of a happy ending. So someone finally made it back to their family, because this was just heartbreaking, just knowing you're never gonna see these people again. It took 20 years, but eventually,
I want to see Roots 20 years from now.
Yeah.
I want to see how they make it 20 years from now, because it was so impactful. Yeah. From when it was made in the 70s to now. I
hope it doesn't resonate the same way. I hope we go, this really feels like history. I hope it really.
Oh my gosh, that could never happen.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
I was going to say that. I hope that we don't necessarily need to have a remake of Roots or even show this version of it. We need it right now because our country is in absolute chaos and dismay, right?
I hope it shouldn't be forgotten, though.
No, it shouldn't be forgotten, but I shouldn't have this piece of anger in me watching this because it's still happening.
I want it to feel more historical. I want it to feel like, oh, what a great piece of history I just watched.
Yeah, like I want to be able to look at this 20 years from now and say, gosh, we really have overcome. Yeah. Instead of being like, damn, as soon as I leave here, I hope I don't get shot.
That's
right?
That's what we were thinking at the end when they were free. I was like, oh my God. Go back out there.
Yeah.
But regardless of the historical context and all of the results of this piece of history, overall the production of it, I loved.
It was great.
Phenomenal.
I loved it.
And I enjoyed watching it with you guys. It was a good.
It was interesting to watch it with you guys.
We had a good run.
Because there were moments where we were just mad, just looking at each other, and fuming. I can't believe this. I had to get up and walk out for a minute. I mean, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
I wish we could have had a more diverse group of people watch it with us.
Yeah, so we could really gauge how other people were taking it in.
Yeah, but I think it would have also been kind of awkward.
Yeah,
it would have been awkward. But we need awkward. We can't progress without awkward.
I'm sorry, and I love whoever was tweeting us, but there was a comment and the girl said, "I love you, whoever you are," but she was like, "I didn't know that black people were being treated so badly," and that hurt me so bad when I read that. I was just like,
and that's why
didn't know. Please let's everybody watch.
And that's why we needed this series. So
because they were, and we're still being treated badly.
Well, I mean, I'm glad you guys are tuned in to watch with us. We'd like you to download us on iTunes, give us 5 stars. We want to hear your comments, your feedback. We've enjoyed this a lot. I'm Shaka Smith. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Shaka Strong.
I'm Erica J. Green. You can find me on all social medias, Erica Jaye Green.
Absolutely. And let's keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to be on Twitter. Hit me up at McCall Hall when sports and pop culture collide. But tonight, I want to tweet about Roots. So if you have something that you want to get off your chest or you want to talk about more, I'm going to be on my phone. I want to continue this conversation.
Yep. Join us, guys. Keep the conversation going, and have a good night.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.